Welcome to Datascience.show, the podcast where data science meets executive leadership. We talk with top AI and analytics thought leaders about turning data into real business impact. If you're a C-level leader or data expert shaping the future, you're in the right place.
Welcome to Datascience.show, where data science meets leadership, and we focus on less hype, more impact. Today, Buying the Brain, an executive playbook for procuring foundation models and managing true total cost of ownership. Imagine a pilot that promised a new revenue stream and then collapsed when a surprise hosting bill arrived, and the contract quietly allowed the vendor to reuse your data. Sound familiar? Hold that image. This episode is about preventing that exact outcome and making procurement a strategic advantage.
Quick framing. I've been in the room during procurement negotiations, sit-downs with legal teams, and executive briefings where the numbers didn't add up until we rescoped the deal. Today, I'll lay out a pragmatic, non-technical playbook for C-level leaders, procurement heads, and legal partners. How to scope outcomes, compare sourcing approaches, map TCO beyond license fees, allocate contract risk, and design exit and portability clauses. Expect anonymized vignettes, a simple decision rubric, and a 90-day checklist you can act on. No vendor endorsements, just negotiation levers and governance-ready questions.
Opening vignette. A mid-sized retailer ran a pilot using a hosted API to personalize product recommendations. Early results were promising. Conversion rates rose. Leadership was excited. Then the unexpected. Traffic spiked. Usage-based costs multiplied overnight, and the contract's data use clause allowed the provider to retain and improve models using customer interactions. The pilot's marginal profit vanished, and legal flagged compliance concerns. The board asked, "How did procurement miss this?" The answer is rarely about bad intentions. It's about missing the decision framework that links outcomes to sourcing and TCO.
So where do you start? With outcomes. Ask, what business metric moves if this model works? Is it revenue per user, customer retention, time to decision, or cost avoidance? Map each use case to 4 concrete dimensions: latency requirements, data privacy constraints, need for customization, and SLA/availability expectations. These dimensions become your sourcing criteria. For example, a customer-facing chatbot with sub-second latency and PCI constraints points one way. A monthly batch insights model with non-sensitive aggregated data points another.
Decision rubric, short and usable. If you need low latency, strict data residency, and heavy customization, private deployment or a managed private instance often wins. If you need rapid experimentation and low operational ownership, hosted APIs score high. If your differentiation depends on fine-tuned behavior and proprietary training data, consider licensing plus strict IP and portability clauses. The middle path, hybrid, is often the right compromise, hosted for non-sensitive capabilities, private or fine-tuned models for high-value sensitive functions. The key is mapping the rubric to strategic optionality, not to vendor product catalogs.
Now, licensing models and contract trade-offs. 4 common approaches land on most RFPs: hosted API, managed private deployment, model licensing, bring your own infra, and bespoke fine-tuning services. With hosted APIs, you trade control for speed, low integration cost, but watch payload logging, reuse clauses, and rate-based pricing. Managed private deployments reduce data egress risk and often include SLAs, but they increase fixed costs and operational overhead. Model licensing can preserve control, but adds integration and MLOps risk. Fine-tuning services accelerate customization, but ask, who owns the fine-tuned model, and what rights do you retain to export or rehost it?
3 practical questions to hand to legal and procurement right now. 1. Can the vendor certify they will not retain or use my input data for model improvements without explicit scoped consent? 2.
If the vendor fine-tunes or customizes a model for us, who owns the resulting weights or artifacts, and what are the export and escrow options? 3. How are usage spikes priced and capped? Do we have hard cost ceilings or burst protections? Frame these as negotiation levers, not ultimatums. You want options, audit rights, and predictable economics.
Let's talk TCO, and this is where deals silently fail. License fees are the headline, but true TCO includes compute, data ops, labeling, monitoring, model refresh, integration, latency infrastructure, and vendor support. A hosted API might seem cheap until you measure per-call costs at scale and the engineering time to handle retries and throttling. Conversely, a private deployment has upfront infra, specialized engineers, and ongoing model refresh costs. Build a scenario-based cost bucket, baseline usage, moderate growth, and stress usage. For each scenario, map variable costs, fixed costs, and one-time integration costs. Then stress test for 2x or 3x usage. Vendors often price for steady state, not viral growth.
A short anonymized scenario. An enterprise media company chose a hosted model for content moderation. They underestimated edge case labeling and human-in-the-loop costs. After launch, moderation exceptions required heavy manual review. Labeling and retraining costs ballooned. The lesson: include labor and labeling as first-class TCO elements and plan for a post-launch cadence of model refreshes with associated budget lines. Operationalized monitoring costs too. Logging, explainability tooling, and incident response all add up.
Data rights, IP, and exit clauses, arguably the most strategic part of any agreement. Don't sign a contract that treats your data as a free training feed. Demand clarity, limited purpose use of your data, deletion commitments, and audit rights to verify compliance. For fine-tuned artifacts, insist on ownership or at minimum a transferable license that allows rehosting. Insist on portability, a clear export format, a timeline for handover, and an escrow mechanism for code and model artifacts. These clauses preserve future optionality and protect your balance sheet.
Operational risk allocation and SLAs deserve an executive lens. Uptime guarantees matter, but so do performance guarantees under load and reproducible behavior for regulatory inquiries. Ask for breach responsibilities and clear remediation paths. For security, require transparency, third-party security audits, data segregation proofs, and the right to conduct incident forensics or to request logs. If the vendor is unwilling to provide audit access or meaningful liability limits, escalate. You don't want to discover those gaps during a security incident. Organizational implications. Procurement cadence should become iterative, not episodic. Create a cross-functional steering committee, procurement, legal, security, data science, and the business sponsor, with clear decision gates, proof of value, security sign-off, budget approval, and exit readiness. Budget for experimentation, but ring-fence production budgets. Use staged contracts, limited pilots with defined stop-loss triggers, then scale with pre-agreed economics. This prevents sunk cost escalation and aligns incentives.
Okay, here's a prioritized 30-90-day checklist you can run with your team. 0 to 30 days. Inventory existing contracts and tag any clauses that permit vendor data reuse, ambiguous IP language, or open-ended pricing. 30 to 60 days. Run a cost rubric pilot on one critical use case. Capture baseline metrics, stress scenarios, and labeling needs. In parallel, deliver the 3 legal questions I mentioned to counsel for red lines. 60 to 90 days. Negotiate at least 3 portability and exit clauses, data deletion timelines, export formats, and escrow arrangements. Use a simple scoring sheet: strategic value, control risk, TCO risk, and legal exposure. If any score is high risk, require explicit executive approval before scale.
Before we close, 3 board-ready actions you can take today. 1. Mandate a sourcing rubric that ties use cases to latency, privacy, customization, and SLA requirements. 2.
Insist that all new foundation model contracts surface a full TCO model that includes labeling, monitoring, and refresh costs. 3. Require explicit ownership or transferable license language for any fine-tuned artifacts and firm portability clauses. These are practical, defensible guardrails that preserve optionality and margin. If you want the checklist and a starter clause library for procurement and legal, we've prepared a downloadable packet, contract questions, a cost rubric template, and a 30-90-day playbook. Head to datascience.show/buyingthebrain or reach out on LinkedIn to request the pack and adapt it to your jurisdiction. Remember, frame these as negotiation levers, not legal silver bullets. Always involve counsel for binding language. Strategy before technology. From models to measurable value.
That's the difference between models and value.
Thanks for listening. If this episode helped you see one procurement gap you can close this quarter, subscribe and share it with a colleague in procurement or legal. Join the conversation on LinkedIn. I read notes from leaders who are actually doing the work, and I'll highlight practical wins in future episodes. Until next time, clarity over complexity.
Thanks for listening to Datascience.show. If you found value in this episode, subscribe, share it with your network, and join us next time as we explore how data science drives smarter decisions and better business outcomes.